Welcome into Anita on the Mark. Actually, it should be called Anita and Nevin on the Mark, especially when we talk about true crime. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. Nevin, how you doing?
Doing great, Anita. Great seeing you.
Yeah, good seeing you too. We are a very special guest. Greg Yankow is joining us now. So, Greg, welcome in. We are here to talk about what's happened with Bryan Kohberger. Of course, his sentencing was earlier this week, and since then, a lot more information has come out. So we're here to talk about the sentencing. We're here to talk about the new information, and also we're here to talk about what is next, what comes next for, as a lot of people are just calling him BK, Bryan Kohberger, inmate number 163214. That's what we're here to talk about today. So let's dive right into it, guys. And really quick, Greg, want to let the folks know who are tuning in, your background in your history.
Recently retired after 23 years in the FBI. And I was the lead investigator on Nevin Shapiro's case.
So obviously, you've got really a lot of very good insight here on this podcast, on this show, to break down all that has transpired in the last 24 to 48 hours. All right, so let's dive into it. The sentencing, as we know, the outcome for BK, unfortunately, unaliving Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan in November of 2022. He accepted 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, also 10 years for burglary. And by the way, restitution, total penalties costing him anywhere between $200,000 to $300,000. And, I'm getting a lot of like, wait a minute, how's he going to afford to pay that? Like, will the families ever be able to get that restitution? How does that work, Nevin?
Well, in this case specifically, they're not going to be getting restitution from this guy. The only way that they would be whatever assets, and I don't know the answer to that as far as what his assets may have been. But as far as working it off, he would be working in a prison job if he wasn't going to be relegated to solitary confinement on a 24/7 basis. He won't see the light of day. When they say you won't see the light of day, this is what they're really referring to. He's not going to see the light of day.
If he agrees to a book deal, if he agrees to an interview where he's going to get paid, apparently that money, but he's.
I suspect, Anita, to answer your question in depth, I suspect he's not going to be doing any interviews. I just don't see that happening. His 15 minutes of fame, he's a sociopath and a narcissistic behavior individual, and I just don't see him doing that. I don't see the upside for him. He made his mark on society, and I suspect he's going to take that secret to the grave. It won't benefit him in any way, shape, or form, and I can't see him giving any kind of consequential value from a financial standpoint back to the victims of that case.
And Nevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's prohibited from profiting off
on his crime. Yeah, the Son of Sam law. That is correct. That's a Son of Sam law that was put in. I believe Son of Sam was probably 1976. So soon thereafter, I would assume that law was put into place. You can't profit on your crime. But as far as the work situation, Anita, he's not going to be. And the only job he would potentially be able to work would be like an administrative job, like cleaning the warden's lockers or office. And I just can't see anybody signing off on that. Period.
Well, doing a deeper dive, because new information has been revealed, because the sentencing hearing has taken place. And I mean, some of the information, and Greg, this is where your expertise comes into play, it's just been horrific. And just to, get people up to speed, reports are that Kaylee suffered over 20 stab wounds, and her face was left disfigured. Injuries consistent with blunt force trauma, 2 brain bleeds, and a stab near her clavicle that severed major veins and arteries. Maddie had wounds on her forearm and hands, a gash underneath her right eye that went to her nose. And also both of them suffered stab wounds to the liver and the lung. Xana really got the brunt of it. Apparently, reports are more than 50 stab wounds, mostly defensive stab wounds, indicating that she fought back, and her fatal wounds punctured her lung and her heart. And then Ethan, Xana's boyfriend, they feel were likely killed while he was asleep. His body was found partially covered in bed. And his stab wound, again, left clavicle, severing major veins and arteries and possibly the jugular artery. So, Greg, you hear just how horrific and the significant amount of force and how graphic this is. What can you tell me more about the mindset and what Bryan Kohberger is about?
The first thing that I thought of when I saw just the amount of injuries and the brutality that he showed towards Kaylee and Madison, I think clearly those were the two intended victims. I know there's not much to support that. I know there's some allegations that came out recently of there are reports of him stalking possibly Kaylee. I think certainly based on that, one or both of them were the intended targets. And I think Xana may have just stumbled, maybe come out of her room, maybe stumbled across it, maybe heard something from the defensive wounds. She clearly fought for her life. And I think that she just may have been not a target of opportunity for him. I think that he was probably trying to leave and came across her and her boyfriend.
Nevin, I mean, again, you spent quite a bit of time in jail. I know a much different crime, but in your time, like, have you ever come across a criminal that was this heinous?
Um, well, so for my crime, Anita, the only time I found myself around um, repugnant animals such as this would have been in the pre-sentencing phase, where everybody's in the same place, getting ready to defend themselves. Um, so that happened when I was in Newark for about 15 months, um, when I first surrendered. The second time would have been while I was in transit through Atlanta, early 2011. Since my next return to Atlanta, maybe 2 years or 3 years after that, they had changed the way it was set up. So I can't tell you I was around that type of heinous serial killer mindset, committed criminal, but there were some guys, according to the gossip around, that some guys were there for murder and under pre-sentence situations before they pleaded their case or went to trial or whatever. And I was a
Um,
federal case, of course. This is a state matter. But it's crazy how someone from a white collar situation, such as what my crime was, you could find yourself in the same lines then with these guys.
more information as well came out about the motive behind the murders, and it remains unresolved. Right? Prosecutors said that there's no confirmed specific target among the victims, no established connection on social media, personal connection between them. At first, there's reports he's a vegan. You had Maddie, who worked in a vegan restaurant. They thought maybe there was a connection there. Police are saying no. They thought that there'd be a connection, something on Instagram. Maybe there was at one point a report that he DM'd Kaylee. No, so didn't know them. As you said, Greg, reports are that he did stalk them. I guess the phone records, the pinging of the phone, and apparently Kaylee had communicated to a friend or two that she saw somebody in the tree staring at her in the apartment, and that she felt that there was somebody who was stalking her. But at the same time, there's also a report that one of the roommates came home and the door was open, wide open. So there was some speculation that he had entered their apartment. And I guess a few questions to that. Number one, I feel he did all of this in less than 15 minutes, right? In less than 15 minutes. And if you look at a rendering of their apartment, not a normal apartment in regard to a layout, right? Like you had the two bedrooms on the third or fourth floor, and then Xana and Ethan had their bedroom with Dylan along with the kitchen on the second floor. And then there was, so he had to know, he had to not only know their daily routines, but had to know the layout of that apartment. So would one assume, Greg, that he had been in the house previously?
Yeah, I think a couple of things with that, Anita. So they're saying that there was no connection or no evidence of a connection, which is different than there being the possibility of a connection, right? Like, I think the statement that there was possibly a stalker of Kaylee, the door open, it appears that there was familiarity with the house, and just given the strangeness of the subject in this, it would not surprise me in the least. And if you look at the phone pinging records, the cell phone tower data, he was around that house for weeks and months before this happened. So I don't think that's outside of the realm of possibility at all. In fact, I would say it's very likely.
Greg, I have a question. So
Yeah.
what is, and I don't have any clue to this answer, that's why I'm asking, but why is the investigation so secretive? Why is it? I mean, the whole world. First of all, the family wants to know, and the whole world wants to know.
Yeah, I think you're gonna start to see more things released. I think one of the orders that came out from the court after the sentencing was to unseal the case files. So I think you're going to start to see more things coming out. The secrecy, obviously, before the arrest was made, was just to protect the information that they had, and then the secrecy up until the plea was obviously to protect them going into court, them seeking a conviction in trial, not tainting a jury. But now we should start to see information trickle out, at least everything that they can, outside of grand jury material, should be coming out. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't at this point.
Um, Greg, based on the information that we have now, um, do you think that he's killed before? Could this does this crime look to you as somebody's first killing?
So yeah, yes, it does actually. So I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that he's done this before. But if you look at the mistakes that he's made, he's not very good at this. I think that he believes that he is. I think he thinks he's this genius criminologist, and he's smarter than everyone else, better than everyone else. Again, like Nevin said, the narcissistic tendencies, but he's just really not good at it. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility, but I don't think that it's likely, because he probably would have been caught given the mistakes that he made.
Yeah, he great answer, and Anita, just to chime in, you and I both went to um, college together at the University of South Florida, right? And I majored in criminal justice, and they had at that time top top rated criminal justice program, and we at length discussed the Ted Bundy case. I'm going back, of course, to the late '80s when we discussed it. And my professor at that time was on the force that actually captured Ted Bundy.
Wow.
Yeah, his name was Dr. Leonard Torito, and we went one of. I didn't enjoy college, but I enjoyed this class. And so he actually went in depth into like how brilliant and I'm not glorifying a murder, but how brilliant Ted Bundy was in his, I guess, craft or insanity or whatever you want to term it. And this guy falls way short of a Ted Bundy.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So the jail that he's been at up until this point, I guess some news organization, somebody was able to interview one of the inmates who shared, I guess, that was next to his cell, and had reported that this is how he described BK: very smart, obsessive, and creepy. Washed his hands a dozen times a day, showered for 45 minutes, slept all day, paced all night, video chatted with his mother every day. Like, that was his main point of communication. And what I find interesting was never talked about his murders, but asked a ton of questions about everyone else's. So what does that information tell you about Bryan, Greg?
Just an odd individual, right? I mean, Nevin, probably the cellmate you do not want in prison. Just everything about this guy. I think Olivia Gonzalez said it best when she called him basic. Like he believes that he's better and smarter than everyone else, and I think his life experience comes from a textbook and not from the real world.
Yeah, he's not living in real
Nevin,
time.
Nevin, is there a code in jail? Like, you don't ask other people about their crimes. Like, is there some type of like code that you don't do that?
Yeah, well, there's it's an interesting question. There's a number of answers. Typically, you're going to stereotype somebody, and you may not like what you find out. If you do, um, there are some guys you won't walk near, and then there's some guys that you'll just not think may be of that mental capacity, but in fact, they have something waiting for you. So it's a real dicey game. Typically, you don't want to discuss your case for the fact that there's just a lot of informants inside trying to lessen their own sentence and give some information on a guy like, you know what this guy told me? He's behind a murder. What? Do you think you can get him to talk? Like, I didn't go through that as far as ever talking to somebody, but I was approached no less than, I don't know, 200-300 times, maybe more, maybe a little bit less, but a lot about my case and everything else, because guys will use it to their advantage or try to use it to their advantage to shorten their own, sentence and liability. But yeah,
Interesting.
typically you don't discuss your case, and when you're in the public eye, like in my case was, it's almost impossible to ignore. And the ironic thing in my case was a lot of the infamy came from the University of Miami scandal, but that had absolutely nothing to do with my criminal case, right? So yeah, the more public you are and the more popular you are, the worse it is for you inside. You don't want to be a popular guy. You want no one even know who the hell you are.
We're
Now, Nevin, is that valuable information inside?
Meaning what specifically?
Knowing what someone's offense
Oh
was.
yeah. Oh yes. Yes. I've seen it work, Greg, in 100 different scenarios where someone walks around the yard real tough, but deep down they're really a rat, and they get exposed. And I've seen so many different situations, and guys get carried out, or they call it, you got to go up top, which means you check in, and if you don't check in, they're gonna take care of you to make sure that you do.
What do you
You're
mean
either
check in? Like with the shot caller for?
you're gonna check in, meaning you're gonna go to the police and say, I got to go to the shoot for my own protection. And yeah, I mean, there's a million different codes that go on. It's a life that I wish I didn't have to learn. I officially have a PhD in bidding in prison. And that's not a braggadocious thing, but at least in my post incarceration life, I have some street cred. But yeah, it's a world, like here's the analogy for you guys. And, Greg, you've been closer to it obviously than Anita, but never as an inmate. When you're in the yard and you look up and you see the stars in like at nighttime, that's how far the planets are of being in prison and being in the real world are. You're in another stratosphere, a world that doesn't even exist on planet Earth. That's how far away you are. And it's real. And this animal is, and I said this when we spoke recently, Anita, this guy should have taken.
Well, we're not there yet.
Okay.
We're gonna shelf that. I want,
Okay.
because I want to talk about the sentencing hearing,
Mm-hmm.
because some really unbelievable messages were given to Bryan Kohberger. And then I do want to dive into the sentencing, and Nevin,
Yeah.
obviously get your
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on and Greg as well, what we anticipate to happen with Bryan when he goes to the maximum security institution in Idaho. But let's talk about the sentencing hearing. Of course, listen. I was tuned in yesterday. The ratings were off the roof. A lot of the country was watching. How could you not? We've all been, this case has been riveting for a few years now. But this was the opportunity for the families of the victims to deliver emotional impact statements expressing their grief or their anger. So Christy, Kaylee's mother, said to BK, hell will be waiting, and that is nothing, and officially the property of the state of Idaho, where your fellow inmates are anxiously waiting your arrival. And of course, Nevin will dive into that even further a little bit later on the show. Steve, Kaylee's father, said, today you've lost control. You picked the wrong family, and we're laughing at you on your trip to prison. Which, Greg, I want you to interject here, because one thing Steve, Kaylee's father, was talking about was, I thought it was interesting. He did an interview yesterday, I think it was on ABC, and he said the minute they got the call and they were told that Kaylee was killed, he said our entire family went into action, and they hired a private investigator. They were boots on the ground. They're the ones who were able to uncover the video of his white car on like a 7-Eleven camera, right? Like, they helped get him. How often does that happen in your line of work, where families strap up their boots and go to work and help police find the criminal?
So I've never seen it to that level before. But obviously, as an FBI agent, I mean, that is how I would build all of my cases, is working with the victims, talking with the victims, following all of the leads that they're able to provide me. So that information is invaluable during an investigation. For them to go, that next step and actually conduct an investigation themselves as a family with a private investigator, I've never seen it before. But wow, how impressive. And I mean, you watched it yesterday. Everybody needs a sister like Olivia. Like, just that girl wasn't going to stop.
And I'm going to, I pulled a few clips from what she communicated to Bryan Kohberger. Um, my sister Kaylee and her best friend Maddie embodied everything you could never be: loved, accepted, accomplished, brave, and powerful. She called him a sociopath, a psychopath, a murderer. You didn't win. You're a delusional, pathetic, hypochondriac loser who thought you were so much smarter than everybody else. You aren't special or deep, not mysterious or exceptional. Don't ever get it twisted again. Nobody is scared of you today. No one is intimidated by you. No one is impressed by you. No one thinks you're important. If you hadn't attacked them in their sleep in the middle of the night like a coward, Kaylee would have kicked your fucking ass. The truth is, you're as dumb as they come: stupid, clumsy, slow, sloppy, weak, dirty. Um, and she got an applause after saying that. And it was extremely powerful. And another thing, Greg, that we saw, and I'm assuming you saw it as well, was you could visibly, you could see Bryan Kohberger get eight, like, you know, the majority of the other families that spoke, obviously extremely emotional, very sad, talking about their pain and their grief. This was different. She came after him. She insulted him, and you could see his body. You could see everything change. I thought it was probably the most powerful moment of the day yesterday.
I've been doing this a long time. I've been in courtrooms for dozens, if not 100 victim impact statements. I've never seen anything like that. I was watching it live yesterday, and you know, it's a tough watch. It's I mean, there's no justice for these families, and hearing their words and hearing their pain it's terrible. It's not enjoyable. There's it's hard to sit through. But when she started speaking, I realized that she was going to be different. She was going to take away whatever little power that he thought that he had. And I sat up and I listened and I watched, probably a lot like you did. You just mentioned it. I think she was the only one to get a physical reaction out of Kohberger. I think she succeeded in taking away what little power that he thought he had.
It was it was powerful. She was powerful.
She
That's
was
for sure.
powerful.
So another thing that really a lot of anticipation, if you recall yesterday, was that the judge was going to give Bryan Kohberger an opportunity to make a statement. And, you know, one thing that, you know, we've been talking about for weeks now is, you know, the families wanting to know why. And let's be honest, in life, this is what anything negative happens, we want to know why, right? We want to put our finger on it, and they have no answers. And so the judge asked Bryan Kohberger if he wanted to make a statement, and he said, "I respectfully decline to make a statement when given the opportunity to do so." Also, I thought it was interesting, Greg. Did you see he sat with a paper in front of him with this black heart? Did you see that?
I didn't notice it, but I did read about it. Yeah.
So he's sitting there on a table with a black heart, and he declined to comment. Um, and and then the judge came out and said, "Well, even if he did comment, would he even be telling the truth?" So I guess I want to have that conversation with you guys and your thoughts. Like, do you think that even if Bryan Kohberger would have commented, that it would made the families feel any better, Nevin?
I think this guy's the most despicable thing God has created on this planet. Um, I thought about this. You know, I knew we were going to do this segment today, and I thought about it when I was driving home from the office. And you know, honestly, Anita, you try and make heads and tails, and you always try to take whatever consolation you can take out of a bad situation. You lose somebody, you know, it was their time, this was God's will, whatever it is. There's no consolation. This is just an
No.
absolute Satan. I mean, I'm not even the right guy to ask this question to. The man over here has daughters. I'll let him really answer because I don't even have the right answer. This guy, death is too quick for this guy. Punishment and suffering won't even make up for it, but at least that's a better answer than just quick. And I'll just let Greg answer that question.
Greg, your thoughts on him declining to comment?
So I was going back and forth this week on whether or not he would speak. There was a part of me that I clearly think that his defense counsel would advise against it, but there was a part of me, knowing of his sociopathic tendencies and being a narcissist, that he would want to get the last word. Um, But then when I watched it yesterday and saw the way that he leaned into the microphone and the words that he said, um, I saw a smugness, a like this was his last gasp at having some sort of control, some sort of power over these people. And I think that if I believe that was his intent, it was his last bit of control before he's gone forever.
So what happens now? Apparently he's going to have to go through some medical, psychological, security evaluations. And then the anticipation is that he's going to go to the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, IMSI. It's the state's only maximum security prison. It houses some of the state's most dangerous and most violent offenders in a highly secured environment. So with that being said, now, Nevin, this is where your expertise comes in. And here's the conversation, right? So the death penalty in Idaho is lethal injection, but if they can't do the lethal injection, then it's firing squad, which is insane to me considering that this is 2025. But nonetheless,
let me just jump right ahead. He could take curtain number 1 or number 2. Chamber, firing squad. And I promise you, it is a better alternative than curtain number 3. You understand?
So people who think that he got off easy by going to this Idaho Maximum Security Institution, you're saying absolutely not. Death would be better.
By a landslide.
Wow.
Anita, let me take your viewers into the reality of where this guy is physically. I'm not going to even talk about mentally because I'm not a sociopath, maniacal killer. This guy is going to spend, all right, so how much time is there in a day? 24 hours. When you're sitting inside a closed cell 4x6, a minute feels like an hour. An hour feels like a day. A day feels like a week. Keep going. That's one day. He is not going to see oxygen. He's not going to see oxygen. And if he does, someone's coming for him. So his better bet is to stay where he is. Because if he were to get out, he's going to get killed. Now, wouldn't you say, I'd rather have it done peacefully than have it done the way he did it to those 4 innocent victims? That's what he is staring at. And let me correct something. Well, not correct, but let me just adjust one of the comments. Going to one of the most heinous prisons, Anita, it wouldn't matter if this guy was going to a federal camp. Somebody's coming for him. He's not avoiding his fate if he steps on a general population compound. Period.
Nevin, what was the longest that you've spent alone in a cell?
I was sentenced, so I was given a 90-day SHU, special housing unit, which is considered solitary confinement for an incident that they stuck on me when I was inside. And prior to that 90 days, Greg, I was under investigation by SIS, which is considered, it stands for Special Investigative Services. They're like the FBI inside. Over, yeah. So they monitor the goings on. You know, they got all the rats and the snitches that are reporting to them. They know everything going on. There's no secrets in there. So I was under investigation for like 2 months, and then I was given a 90-day SHU imprisonment. So it's jail within jail. So just under 6 months, 5 months, and I don't know exactly, but in between 5 and 6 months. And it was like seasons changed. Okay, so I was in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. So I went in the fall. I waded through the snow, and I came out in the spring, just in time for basketball season for me to play. And it's terrible. It's god awful terrible. And there's guys that have done their whole entire prison sentence in the show. I know guys that have done 5 years. And it's crazy when you get in there, and I don't want to make it a comedy, but you remember the movie Stir Crazy back when Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder have to go in the cell with the big guy Grossberger, right? And you're in there, and it's like you can't breathe. And so the first few weeks, you're just losing your mind, and it's anxiety. And then you just lose your mind, and you just become okay with your circumstances. That's when I really crossed over in my prison experience, going through that to the point where they're like, all right,
is there night? Is there day? Are the lights
no.
on all the time? Like, no.
It's different for every place. So like when I was locked up for the, when I was in transit because of the Miami thing. So now I'm in protective custody. So I'm in a whole different type of security. I was in a dungeon, like think Silence of the Lambs, like that, minus the lights. It's terrible. You don't know if it's 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. Day stands still. Night stands still. The world stands still. And it's all psychological. And if you can make it through that, internet warriors don't really bother you so much.
But make it through what? He's never getting out. There's no make it.
I'm using a 5-month I'm using a 5-month synopsis. You're talking about a forever synopsis. That's why I just said to you, death. Let's be done. He don't have life. There's no semblance of life. It's over for him. Over.
Last question for you, Nevin. Will you be surprised if he makes it a year there? How long do you think it takes until someone gets to him?
I don't think someone's going to get to him because there'll be blood on the hands, even though people really want them to have blood on their hands, so someone will take him out. But I don't see them letting that happen. That institution is not going to want to wear that. You could look at some of the recent examples in the federal system. Whitey Bulger, who was an all-time rat against the mob, he hit general population and was dead in 1 day. Now, that didn't happen by coincidence or freak luck, right? The institution was, right? That's one example. Epstein, mysteriously. It's a hot topic today, right?
Right.
Yeah, no one's getting to him. He would have to take himself out, and I'm sure they'll let him suffer and won't even let him get that benefit. Because that's a benefit.
Greg, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I was just watching that the impact statements yesterday and the sentencing and the judge speaking. Just that for these families, there will never be justice, no matter what happened, whether the life sentence, whether they got capital punishment. There's no justice for what happened to these families, and it was just it was very sad and emotional watching that yesterday.
It's as heartbreaking as it gets, Anita. There is no. This is a real. Just terrible situation for those families, man. Specifically
Absolutely.
the parents and the and the siblings. I don't get moved too easy. Like I was as close to tears as I could possibly, like, for what sense? What like it's not like a road rage incident where someone triggered you, or like, at least not that would make it right, but at least where there's an action, there's a reaction. This is just cold-blooded murder, just taking human lives, like, with no regard. Just, ugh.
Obviously, watching the events that took place in regard to the sentencing, for all of us, as you can hear, our hearts, our prayers go out to the families and what they've had to endure.
Real
With that
tragedy.
being said, we appreciate you watching. Please comment. We look at the comments. We will respond to the comments. Subscribe. hopefully you've been watching as well the Netflix series, Where is Amy? Our next program that will be coming your way at the early part of next week. We're going to do a deep dive into that Netflix series. If you haven't watched it, you need to. It's very interesting. And we're going to do a deep dive into that as well. So stay tuned. That's coming your way next week. But again, thank you so much for watching, subscribing. And again, our prayers and our thoughts go out to all the families of the victims. Thank you.